Hey, what's going on, guys? Rome Gaming here, back into the video. Today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at how to play Jax in the top lane. Starting out with some of the pros and cons here. So, starting with the pros, he's honestly just a really good dueler. He has really good base stats, and he scales very well with just trading auto attacks with the champion. So, this is naturally going to make him a very good split pusher and just a very good 1v1 champion. And a lot of this is due to his passive here, Relentless Assault. So, Jax auto attacks grant a stack for 2.5 seconds. I grant him 3.5% attack speed, getting to a maximum of 28% attack speed. So that by default is going to make him a very good duelist. Let's also go to his ultimate really quick. So his ultimate has a passive and an active effect. So the passive is every third attack within 2.5 seconds is going to deal an additional 170 magic damage. So Jax is going to be very difficult to itemize against because he does kind of a mix of both physical and magic damage. But another thing that makes him trade so well is when this turns into an active effect, he's going to get MR, he's going to get armor, and he's going to get more of that based on the amount of champions that he attacks. And also during this time, every second attack instead of every third attack will deal that bonus magic damage. And the final thing that makes him trade very well is going to be his E, his counter strike. So he's going to be able to dodge all incoming attacks, and he's going to take 25% less damage from area of effect abilities. Now he can recast this ability early to finish the animation early and actually stun the enemy, dealing a whole bunch of magic damage. And the second part of this is he will actually deal increased damage based on the number of attacks dodged, and that does eventually cap out. Then he also has his Q ability, Leap Strike, so he can leap to an ally or an enemy, and he can also leap with wards, so you can place this over walls and leap directly to the ward, and that's going to help him kind of move around the map pretty efficiently. And then his W ability is just simply going to charge his next attack with magic damage. So kind of got off track there a little bit. We were talking about the pros and cons, and I just decided to discuss one pro and then just go into all of his abilities and passives. So just kind of getting back to his pros and cons. He's a good split pusher. He's a great duelist. He's a great farmer. And that's how you're going to win with Jax, is getting into the side lanes, splitting into tier 2, and then taking side camps from the enemy jungler. Now, he is pretty good in team fights if you can stay on top of carries. And then he has that huge AoE stun through his counter-strike. So if you can get that off, that can be absolutely game-changing. However, he's not super strong against any sort of team comps that have a bunch of CC. So he's pretty mid-tier in terms of team fighting, and you typically want to be, like I said, getting him to a side lane and trying to force those 1v1s. And then Jax is finally also pretty weak against any sort of poke-heavy comps that can kind of dwindle him down. Okay, let's go ahead and take a quick look at some of the runes he'll be taking. So he's taking Grasp of the Undying, and this is really going to help him in the laning phase kind of trade for additional health. So that's going to deal a percentage of max health, and that's also going to heal you for a percentage of your max health. And it will permanently increase your health by 5 each time you do this. And since he is such a dominant split pusher, we're going to be taking something like Demolish, and this is going to kind of help him snowball to take off some of those turret plates. We also have Second Wind, which is just going to help him in lane a little bit more. Then we're taking Unflinching to give him a little bit of armor and magic resist, going to pair very nicely with his ultimate. And since a lot of times he does kind of struggle in lane, we'll be taking Biscuit Delivery. And since he's pretty reliant on his abilities, we'll be taking something like Cosmic Insight. Now, for your summoner spells, you'll be typically taking Flash and Teleport. However, if you are in a lane that you are kind of going for the kill, you can take Ignite in place of Teleport. So if you're really going for that snowbally sort of play style, typical starter items are going to be a Doran Shield into a Health Pot into a Stealth Ward. And Sheen is going to be a very good early item because you can proc it pretty easily. Pretty much your entire kit can proc this, and by empowering your next auto attack, you can auto use his W to reset his auto attack and proc this Sheen effect on his W to do a whole bunch of burst damage. It's really good to trade with. And then you'll obviously want to get some basic boots on your first back. Now that Sheen's going to build directly into a Trinity Force, and Trinity Force just has a ton of good raw stats that just scale very good with Jax. He's kind of the jack of all trades. And any sort of item that's just going to give a whole bunch of just raw stats is going to be really good on him. And then for trading, something like Sunder's Sky is going to be really good. Again, we get that empowered auto attack from our W. So by getting Lightning Shield Strike paired with your Spellblade from Trinity Force, you can really chunk enemies. And this is especially good on squishy targets. Then for your core items, you'll typically be going Plated Steel Caps. You are a duelist. You'll be trading auto attacks a lot with people since you will be in a side lane split pushing. So Plated Steel Caps are going to be one of the best for that. And then after you get your core items, his build can get kind of wild. So you can go something like a Zanya's Hourglass if you are getting focused down. That's going to allow you to go in, get your stun off, And then you could go into the stasis effect. And then once you get out, a lot of your abilities will be off cooldown again, so you can leap again. And this is going to help buy some time as you kind of dive their backline. You can also go something like a Stairs Gauge. It's going to give you the big shield. And Jax really doesn't have to itemize too much into damage. After you get your Trinity Force and just through your base stats, you just do a ton of damage with your auto attacks. So you can go a little bit more defensive with something like a Stairs Gauge. And then Wits End is going to be really nice, especially if you are going against magic damage heavy comps. Now, for example, let's say that you are going against a Yasuo. A Wits End might not be super good. You might rather go for something like a Randuin's Omen. You could go for like a Death's Dance or a Blade of the Rune King. If you are against a bunch of auto attack based champions, you could go for something like a Frozen Heart. And another good dueling item is going to be something like Spirit of Shojin. So it gives a lot of good stats that Jax likes to use, especially that basic ability haste. And this does have a stacking effect to just kind of passively beef up our damage. And then finally, you go something like an Abyssal Mask as well if you are facing heavy magic damage comp and you want to go a little bit more tanky. And this is a very good team fighting option as well. And it's almost like the opposite of something like Frozen Heart, which is going to affect AD, and Abyssal Mask is going to affect magic damage. So in terms of your ability order, you're always going to be maxing W first. You want to start with your E into Q because your E is really good to trade with, especially at level 1 where people are really auto attack reliant. And most people don't have a lot of abilities left, so you can completely counter somebody with something like a counter strike. And then you will, at level 2, put 1 point into Q, and you will not touch this until level 14 again. You're just taking it for the additional mobility. Does not do much damage at all. So let's quickly talk about his power spike. So your first power spike is going to be at level 6, and you really do not have a power spike before that. And Jax is going to be pretty item reliant, so his base stats aren't super great. So what you're really looking to do is to complete an item and to max your W. And you really come online mid-game when your W is maxed. And kind of like we were saying earlier in the guide, the main thing you want to complete is your Trinity Force into your Sundered Sky. That's going to give you that big burst damage. And then the second thing you're looking to do is to get 2 points into your ultimate. So once you get 2 points into your ultimate, that is truly when Jax becomes pretty much unstoppable. And where things get really interesting is when he gets his Q maxed, you will get so much CDR on it that you are kind of all over the map and you can efficiently hop walls, go between camps. And especially if you go something like the Zanya's build, you can go ahead, dive Zanya's, and by the time you're out of your Zanya, you probably got a Q ready to go again. And you can just overall be pretty annoying to their backline. So let's talk a little bit about some Jax combos here. I'm going to try to put up a target dummy. Let's try to get it out of the way so that we don't have minions running into it. And let's just go ahead and teleport here. So one of the main things you want to do, especially if you catch somebody out in a 1v1, is you don't want to waste your Q. You kind of want to save it, especially early when you don't have any points into it, because you want to save it for a flash when they try to disengage. So let's say you're walking in a brush here, the ally or an enemy comes around the corner, you start autoing him. You don't want to just immediately auto QW. You want to save that Q for when he tries to flash and disengage, and you can hop back on him again. So let's go ahead and talk about your standard sort of engage combo. So typically what you're going to do is you're going to start out with your E, and then you're going to Q, auto, W, and then E again. So that all happens pretty quickly, and once you get kind of used to Jax, it'll just kind of happen naturally. But again, you went to E, Q, auto, W, E, then auto again. And you can see right there I did 1,300 damage with no items. I know we are late game. That probably has a lot to do with it, but you know, a squishy like an ADC only has a couple thousand health. You can see you can almost completely burst him down with just one full combo. Now, let's say you're the one who gets caught out and somebody does engage on you. Typically, what you want to do when you're disengaging is you want to E, auto, auto, W, ward hop, Q, out. Another decent combo is sometimes the enemy is, let's just say, for example, standing right here, a little bit out of your range. What you can do, we'll just kind of spawn a target dummy here. Oh, went away from it. Spawn an enemy dummy right here. And let's just say that they're right out of range of your Q. Let me get to the other side here. So what we can do is we can actually utilize the range on our E. You can see it has this sort of radius around me when I cast it or when I hover over it. And we can use a ward hop to get within range for our E to stun the target, even though we're not close to the enemy target. So even though that we can't reach that target dummy with our Q, we could still hit them with our stun by ward hopping. So very simply here, you will just E, ward, Q, E, auto, W, auto. So you can kind of sneak in a little bit of extra range with that ward hop on your E stun. Okay, now let's take a quick look at who Jax is pretty strong against in the top lane. So we're looking at the top lane here. We're on the strong against tab. And you can see he's going to be very strong against auto attack based champions. So things like a Kale, an Irelia, a Trundle, a Yasuo, a Yone. Anybody who can duel him and not really lock him down is going to be kind of a favored matchup for Jax. Now, if we kind of look at what he's weak against, you can kind of see he's going to be a little bit weaker against champions that have a lot of CC. Obviously, something like a Teemo with the blind where you can't auto attack him. Something like a Cho'Gath, something like a Gragas, just anything that can lock him down and kind of keep him from sticking to his target. Now, that is a big part of playing Jax is the element of surprise by jumping on your target with your stun and kind of bursting them down very quickly. And, something like a Gragas or something like a Tom Kench can disengage that very quickly. And you also have something, like a Mundo who can permaslay you with his cleaver, and then Vladimir can just simply pull away. Kennen can become untargetable. Poppy can very easily disengage you with her ultimate. There's just any sort of champion that can disengage you is going to be a pretty good counter to you. Okay, guys, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you on the next one.